XFM.
Sean Locke,
Hello.
you are kind of towards the end of this massive tour
Yes, yeah.
that you've been doing. 100 days.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Well, it's over the course of a year. But I did load in February, and then I've done some in the autumn as well. So, yeah, spread out over the course of a year.
And you went to Edinburgh as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I did 6 nights in Edinburgh.
Okay. Why do you do Edinburgh? I think just because, I understand for like a new comedian who's trying to get a bit of profile. But
Yeah, but I only went for 6 nights.
Right.
So I went there, and I thought it was a good way to sort of tour Scotland, but stay in one place and meet up with loads of people I don't normally see, because it's most comedians are up there. So it's a good opportunity to meet up with loads of people, have a few drinks with them, because everybody's sort of working all over the place. You never really see people like you used to. You used to see each other in clubs all the time, so it's quite nice to meet up.
Do you like touring in general?
Bits of it I really like. But the only bit I really don't like about touring is trying to get to sleep, because you sort of finish a show and you're wide awake, and obviously the options are to start drinking, but that's if you're on a long tour you just can't do it. Have a couple of beers. So that's the really hard bit I find is just getting to sleep somehow. But I like travelling around the country. I quite enjoy that. Yeah.
Does it feel like a job?
Well, it is a job, yes.
But does it feel like do you feel like I'm going?
Well,
to
yeah,
work
yeah. If you get to a venue at 5 o'clock. And I did 16 or 17 gigs on the trot, and you get to the venue and you go, I've got to get myself up for this. I've got 2 hours to do it. That's a job. You don't feel like doing it, so it's obviously a job, but it's got far too much freedom, and the rewards are too high for it to be seen simply as a job. So if you think about it that way.
What do you think you'd be doing if you weren't doing stand-up?
I don't know. I've no idea. I didn't have any career path before I did stand-up, so I was very lucky to discover it. Very lucky. I do appreciate how lucky I am.
But you did have real jobs, I know.
Yeah, I did lots of jobs, but they were kind of just jobs I just did, whatever work I could get to get some money. So I worked on building sites. I did a short stint at the DHSS when it was still called the DHSS. I just did the training. I think it was like 5 weeks training, and I did 2 weeks. And in that time, I was there for about literally like 3 months, and I had my full year's complement of sick days off. So I had 19 days off sick. And then I just left when I got my month's wages. I just left and went to Greece. So that door was closed for me.
Okay.
I realised that wasn't suitable for. I liked working on building sites. Those kind. I used to work in factories. I worked in the kitchens of a psychiatric hospital.
Weren't you a goat herder at one point?
Yeah, I did that in France. That was just a lucky little sort of number I stumbled into in a farm in the centre of France. I worked there for about 2 months.
What did you have to do?
Take the goats out to the forest. Well, milk the goats. Get up. Goats get up early. They're like little children. They're a pain in the neck. And they milk them, have breakfast, and then go take them out into the forest.
That sounds like quite a nice life.
It is after a while. You go a bit mad on your own with loads of goats in the woods. You do go a bit nuts. I realised I had to stop. I was talking to myself a lot. I reckon it's more stressful than, being a sort of commodities trader in the city. Because you just lose goats. Goats just bugger off. They just leave you.
What would you do if you...
You'd go and bloody fine. You can't go back without your full complement of goats. So it was very stressful. Probably the stress, actually. That's why I'm able to handle the comedy business, because compared to being a goat herdsman, everyone thinks goat herdsman is idyllic, Elysian lifestyle, but it's not. It's a really, really stressful job. You've got a lot of responsibility. You've got 26 of somebody else's most precious things. And they're wandering about, and you have to keep an eye on them. I used to work on building sites when the opportunity arose. I mean, I did quite a long time. Thick as your skin, to be pretty sure. Yeah.
Was that good preparation for...
I suppose so, yes. Yeah. You get the Mickey piss taken out of you, the Mickey taken out of you a lot on building sites, and you do the same to other people. You're constantly just ripping at any kind of little shred of insecurity someone's got, because that's just what blokes do. And there's loads and loads of blokes doing it all day long. So, you get quite a thick skin.
But was that also quite a good grounding for the comedy in terms of, was it that you were making jokes and people going, oh, you should do this because you're funny?
Well, everyone... Building sites are very funny. Well, I don't know what they're like now. They used to be very funny places with lots of funny people working there. So, you were constantly... everyone's messing around the whole time, just being foolish or stupid. I mean, you obviously there's some blokes, you work hard, so you got used to that, but you mostly, I think, it's the skin you develop. You develop quite a thick skin. I mean, I was always quite surprised, as... more and more people came into comedy straight from university, just how thin skinned they were. Like, you take the piss out of them in the dressing room, and they'd be genuinely sort of hurt and offended. You go, what's the matter with you? It's like, I saw it as that was like the sort of canteen, the dressing room, where people would just sit there and just rip the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
And you know, when I started, there was blokes like Arthur Smith and Bob Mills and Nick Hancock, and they were just, any kind of little slip-up you made, they'd be on you. And that was fine. You knew that was the case. And I think it's changed now. I think everyone's really sort of supportive and helpful and friendly.
Really?
And they just sort of moan about behind each other's backs. I don't like this friendly, helpful, supportive business. I think it makes people a bit soft. Especially when they're being a comedian. I mean, fair enough if they're doing something like, you know, eye surgery. Yeah, you probably will need a bit of sort of comfort and support in a stressful job like that.
But also now it's different in that it seems like, just from having spoken to people who've been doing stand-up for years, that before there was a lot of people who had done real jobs, whereas now there's a lot of people who haven't ever. They're kind of starting
it's a career option. It was never a career option when I started. Comedians were people like Frank Carson, Tom O'Connor. You would never consider being a comedian. Whereas it's become something people want to do. It's become like rock and roll because young people want to do it now. That's the reason it's like rock and roll. It's nothing like rock and roll in the sense of the lifestyle or the behaviour. It's more to do with the fact that kids see it as something they want to do.
How did you start doing it?
Just purely kind of by accident, just by going to gigs and seeing people and there was open spots and I thought I'd have a go at it.
Do you remember your first ever gig?
Yeah, I do, yeah, very clearly.
What was it?
It was in Hackney. There's a little pub in Hackney, and it all went okay. There wasn't many people in the audience, and I did 5 minutes, and it was fine. It was okay. It wasn't great, obviously.
Can you remember what your material was then?
No idea.
Really?
No, it's ages and ages ago. My first gig was in October of '88, I think. It's a long time ago, isn't it? And then you just did it. I did it as a hobby for about a year. Just did it. Didn't do any gigs. Just did open spots. And you could just do it. And you could just turn up at places and they give you an open spot. Now it's much more competitive, I believe. You know, there's so many people want to do it, and sort of just drifted into it like that. And then realised you could make a living out of it.
And so, at what point did you give up your job?
Well, when I saw people making a living, and I thought I could make a living out of this. And there was a thing, Thatcher. I mean, I hated Thatcher for lots of reasons, but actually helped me get started in it. They had this thing called the Enterprise Allowance Scheme. You could even leave a job to go on the Enterprise Allowance Scheme. You didn't have to be on the dole. You sort of signed on for a year, and you got your rent paid, you got housing benefit, and you got £40 a week. If you had to have 1,500 quid in a bank account, that's right, and they would pay your rent for a year and give you 40 quid a week. And whatever you earned didn't affect that, didn't you? So it's not like normally with benefits or whatever you earn comes off your benefits. None of that. So it just gave you the opportunity to set up on your own, and whatever you earned, you kept. So you had to earn 200 quid a week. And that gave a lot of people, I know Dave Gorman started like that, I think quite a few people started like that, just gave them a little impetus to go, well, I'll pack in work. I am indebted in a way.
So you were doing gigs and you were making a living from it, and then the first TV thing that you did was Newman Baddiel in Pieces. But that was kind of still at the height of their 14-year-old
that's right,
fangirl
yeah, they were huge, yes.
fame. And then you went on tour with them.
Yeah.
And was that actually Screaming Girls?
Yeah, they were, yeah, it was very odd. I couldn't understand it. I really didn't. They used to be the same ones backstage. I used to follow them around, some of them. And they were very young and just obsessed with Rob and Dave. I don't know why people become fans. I mean, I was never a fan of anyone myself, so I don't really understand it. I always thought way too much of myself. You know, that kind of fandom, that kind of completely committed fandom. But I think what I realised, I didn't understand, then I slowly began to understand what it was it was not really about Rob and Dave, it was about them. They had something in common. It was a way of identifying yourself with other people who kind of felt the same way as you. So when I first used to encounter them, I used to think they were sort of tragic, pathetic, idiotic girls. But then after a while, I used to sort of go, oh, I see. So it's more about, and that's what it's about, really, being a fan. So it was quite interesting from that point of view. It is about the person. That's the sort of, that's the excuse for it.
Well, you, while supporting them, played at kind of the ultimate fan church cathedral, because you played at Wembley.
Yes, yeah.
And that was were they the first comedians to
they were,
have a gig at Wembley?
Yeah, they were, yeah.
And how was that?
Well, I don't remember it clearly. At the time, comedy wasn't that big. It's huge now. Loads of people do it, but it was quite unusual. I mean, I thought the whole thing was obviously ridiculous, but I enjoyed it. I had a laugh, I got paid. It was no pressure on me. It wasn't my material. I was doing their material. And it was good fun. It was just very, very strange. We travelled around the country, stayed in nice hotels.
Do you now when you stay in your...
Yeah, stay in nice hotels, yeah. Got a taste for the high life. Because I'd never really stayed in hotels before. You didn't stay in hotels. You stayed on people's floors or B&B at the most. So that opened up that whole world of luxury linen. And no, it was good fun. I did enjoy it. And it took me out of the loop, the grind of the circuit for a bit. I was grateful to them for asking me to do it. I think they asked me to do it because I was one of the few comedians who wasn't resentful of their success.
Oh, really?
People are very, very resentful of Rob and Dave, yeah. And I don't know whether it's because I used to work for years, but I always sort of took people on as I found them rather than, Rob and Dave were very, very cocky, young, arrogant, successful young men, but they were all right. They were always pleasant to me, so I was pleasant to them. And I don't think I definitely wasn't the most talented person to be in their sketch show, but I think they had me on board because they quite sort of liked my company, and I didn't think I wasn't resentful of them. People were really resentful of Rob and Dave, really resentful.
Do you think part of that was because of the screaming 14-year-olds, though?
Well, I think it was just the masses. I think comedians have got this stupid idea in their head that the most successful comedian should be the funniest, or who they think is the funniest. And that's not the case. It's who people like the most. I mean, that's obviously always going to be the mark of success. So they had this idea that there was some kind of sort of honour and justice associated with being a successful comedian. So a lot of comedians think, well, why are they being... So they've only... there's a lot of comedians now, they moan about young comics being successful. And you think, well, of course young comics are going to be successful because young people go and watch comedy and they don't want to see some old bloke on stage. They want to see someone who talks about their lives. So, you've got someone like Russell Howard who's playing stadiums, and good luck to him. He's talking to people of his own age or roughly his own age, and they want to see, when you're young and you go and watch bands, you don't want to go and see U2, do you? You want to see a band that is from your age group who knows about what you want to talk about. And I think that probably that was Rob and Dave were the first people to do that, and I think a lot of comics didn't like it. So that's one of the reasons I got on. I think I was invited to do the television show, and I went, yeah, all right. And then I did the tour.
So you did, TV stuff. You had your own TV show, a sitcom, 15 Stories High.
Yes, yeah.
Which you wrote and starred in. It started out as a radio show and then went on to the BBC. 2 series, and you had loads of, like famous fans. Matt Groening's a fan, isn't he? Armando Iannucci.
People who like it really like it.
I always do, whenever I'm interviewing someone, I say it kind of goes out on the Twitter and Facebook, I'm interviewing this person, have you got any questions? And all I had was loads of people going, tell Sean I love 15 Stories High, tell him 15, thank you.
People who like it really like
high.
it, and that's great,
Yeah.
That's really nice to do. And that's one of the good things about DVD is it almost has another life on it, whereas in the old days, I don't think video would have the same appeal or broad accessibility that DVD has. So I'm very grateful to the DVD format for doing that, because otherwise it would be dead, because it never gets repeated. I mean, not even on bloody Dave. I mean, you think you get a shot on Dave. I mean, some of the crap they repeat on that. But then, as soon as I start talking about it, it is quite frustrating that it just only exists on DVD. But people who like it love it.
Do you think you'd do another sitcom? Did you enjoy the process?
Well, it's very hard writing sitcoms. It's the hardest thing to do well, I think. I would do eventually, but after that I thought, I'm not going to do that. I'll go through all that again. So I sort of concentrated on light entertainment and my stand-up.
Right, and so light entertainment, you are one of the team captains on 8 out of 10 Cats.
Yeah.
Is it still ongoing? Because the last series was just quite recently. And
Well, you never know. They make a series and they don't say anything, and then they go, we want another series. So I assume it might come back. If it doesn't come back, I'll just go, fair enough.
Been going for a really long time. It's a great show. It seems more fun to be on than some of the other panel shows.
Yeah, not as rehearsed.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like they allow more ad-libs. I can never, could never tell.
Well, I've battled for that. I fought for that right from the very start, because we used to edit it. They used to edit it just into sort of jokes that people had written. And I said, that's not what people want to see, And now we've got it. It's a longer show now. But I used to fight and battle and rant at the producer to say, edit it, put this body, because Jimmy's very good off the cuff. And
I think people don't know that, because his stand-up is a lot of one-liners, and now he's so famous that he doesn't get hecklers as much as,
Jimmy's very good off the cuff, and I like to mess around, and Jason can do it as well. And I think they've slowly edited it more in that way.
How long is the filming of each show to get it down?
2.5 hours.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They all are. Nearly all panel shows are 2.5 hours. They might as well. The producers might as well. They've paid for all this. Paid all the comedians. They might as well keep you working and squeeze every last drop of what, out of you. So I'd do the same in their shoes. I'd make you work until you go, because you never know, in the last 5 minutes you might find something. So they really do push you. I mean, I'm not complaining. I'm not saying like I'm a Chilean miner and I've been through hell. But they would record for a long time.
Do you get any influence on who the panel guests are going to be?
Not really, no. Very occasionally I say, I don't want to sit with them. Really? Oh, God, it's like, those people who just suck all the energy out of you.
But I mean, you don't say, I really like such and such, we should try and get them on.
I might do, but it's entirely the channel really decide ultimately who goes on. So you can recommend people, but it's up to the actual channel.
Right.
They just go, we want that person on, and we think that's very good. their profile of the show or whatever.
One of the things with 8 out of 10 Cats is it's not just stand-ups. Do you ever get people that come on and kind of surprise you by actually being, they're quite funny?
Yeah. You know, it's always good to have a comedian on, but too many comedians, it goes one way. But, you know, people like Jamelia, when she first came on, she was very entertaining because she's this sort of very, very sort of... She looks like a very manicured pop star, but she's actually quite off the wall. I hate that term. She doesn't really edit herself. She's not really manicured in that way, in the way that she presents herself. So she just comes, says whatever's in her head. The less sort of comedic the guests, often the better the show is. Yeah. Uri Geller was quite entertaining because he's just so convinced by himself. That's what's astonishing about him. He's just utterly convinced. But he must know somewhere that it's utter bollocks. But
do you think?
Yeah, no, I think he does. He does know really deep down. He's just covered it in lots of layers of self-deceit. I mean, to wring that amount of money out of the sort of mildly uncertain takes some skill. I don't think you can do it, you know, just with only one layer of self-deceit. You need many, many, many layers of self-deceit to be able to pull off that trick.
Hosting, you've done hosting stuff as well. You had your show, TV Heaven, Telly Hell. Yeah. You hosted Have I Got News for You as well. Do you like doing that? Do you like kind of being in charge?
Not really.
No?
Really. Pain in the arse, really. I'd do it, but it wouldn't be my choice.
Right.
I like to sit around and make smart-ass comments from sidelines. That's my ideal world, really.
Is
Sitting there going, just sitting there waiting and then just saying something funny and then everyone looks at you for a bit and then they leave you alone. It's not saying I'm turning down any hosting work.
With other stuff, is there anything that you haven't done that you'd like to do? Like writing, you've done. Have you written films?
I've written a few scripts. One of them got made.
What was that one?
That was called Filthy Earth, but that was with a mate of mine who makes art films. So I wrote a script with him, and then he went off and filmed something pretty well. He got the money off the script, and then he went off and filmed something completely different. So I don't really feel that was my script that he eventually filmed.
Which I get the impression is that's kind of the way with films often.
Yes,
you write a script and then...
But I've written a couple of other scripts, but it's a very hard thing to write films. It's a very long narrative, and, you know, it's very incredibly difficult to get a film made, to get the money to get a film made. And even when people get films made, they're usually shit. In fact, they're nearly always shit. And in fact, most films you sit down and watch, you go after half an hour, you go, this is the same tripe I've watched again and again, or I know this is the point they're getting to where they're going, right, we have to end this. It's very, very hard to write a good film, incredibly hard. It's as hard as writing a really good novel. So I'm not actually that disappointed that neither of them have got made, because they probably would have been shit like all the other films. I mean, I get given a box of DVDs at Christmas at Universal because I've got my Lockopedia DVD out, and they give me a hamper of DVDs. It's very kind of them, thank you very much. But it's all, I look at it, I just go, I don't want to watch. I know all these films are shit. Transformers, Sherlock, I watched that in a hotel room, and that got good reviews, and that was just bollocks. Utter bollocks. I mean, No Country for Old Men was a good film, but that's quite unusual.
What films do you like? What's your favourite film?
I think my favourite film, one I've watched most in my life, is probably Pinocchio. I think that's my favourite film. And I think it's a good film because there's lessons in there for everybody, particularly for unscrupulous foxes who sell wooden boys into slavery. I like films from the 70s. I think that was a very good era. I mean, there's that great book, Easy Rider, Raging Bull, about that era of making films. And it was a great era for making films, where films were very sort of, they didn't have to be so formulaic. When you write a film now, everyone conforms to this sort of William Goldman-esque 3-act film plot. And if you watch anything, even good films, I mean, like, say a film that Scorsese won the Oscar for, Departed. After a while, you just get, it's so formulaic. All the character traits that need to be there are shown to you, for the plot to work, are shown to you in the first 5 minutes. And they all have to have this kind of sense of jeopardy appears at this time, then they up the jeopardy. And I suppose that's just how they work, but everyone does that now, and all films are like that. I think there's a reason those rules exist, but people write with those rules in mind, rather than writing a story which just happens to coincide with those rules. So you obviously have to have a narrative progression. What I'm saying is that every film you can just see it so clearly. And it's like a 12-bar blues. It's like I'm hearing the same tune over and over again. And it's always a redemption story. It's always a Christian redemption story. And in my experience, people learn nothing in life. People go through these experiences and they learn absolutely, I don't know if you can swear on this podcast, but they learn fuck all. Nobody learns anything. All they do is they just get tired of doing what they did, so they just stop doing it. Nobody learns a thing. I don't know anyone in my life who's learned anything.
Do you not think you have?
Nothing. I have the same behaviour patterns that I had when I was 7. And I don't know anyone who's learned a thing. What you do is you might arrest it a bit. You might go to yourself, don't do that again. But you don't really learn anything. You just learn, maybe you're exhausted by, you go, if I do that, that happens. But you don't actually learn it in the way that they suggest in films, which is you have some kind of epiphany where you realise this is right, this is wrong, and this is how I should live my life. So that's why also I find films bollocks as well, because they've got this ridiculous notion that people learn, and nobody learns anything.
When you wrote the sitcom, did you have to think about those kind of narrative?
No, sitcom's great. I like sitcom is because you don't have that rule. Nobody has to learn anything. It's not big enough a story, a time. So what you do is you have a problem and you resolve your various problems and you resolve them. And that's probably why film is so hard. Film is incredibly hard because you've got all these... Well, the idea is it's supposed to be the most important 90 minutes of anyone's life. Sitcom's much easier. Not easier, it's hard, but it's hard in a different way.
Right. Let's talk about the DVD, Lockopedia. This is the show that you've been touring.
Yes.
So it's you doing stand-up, but then it also has another element to it.
Yeah. Well, it's just every now and again I just do play audience battleship, so I just shout out a row and a seat number, like E24, and whoever's in that seat, they have to give me their name, a letter, and a word beginning with that letter, and then I just see if I can do something on it. It's just a bit of fun, breaks up the yakety-yak of stand-up. It gets other people involved in the show and has a sort of random element to it, which is quite good fun.
Do you get really stumped by them?
Yeah, of course,
ever?
always.
Yeah?
It's impossible to do.
Is it?
Yes. Well, because someone shouts out titanium. What are you... not getting any jokes based around titanium alloys, let alone titanium. So what I do is it's how I get out of it, really. It's most audiences get it quite quickly that obviously I can't do it, and it's just me being ridiculous. But it just gets people involved in the show in a different way, changes it, and it goes off in different directions. And then I bring it back, and I can only do it if I had a really strong stand-up show. You couldn't be like going, oh, right, well, this bit's not going well, I'll try the lock. You can only do it if the show's going really well and it's a really strong show, and then it's just a way of messing around.
Did you ever think of doing that as the whole show?
When I first started, I was going to do one half stand-up, one half that, and then I realised, no, I can't put people through that.
Really? Did you try it out?
I did. When I first started trying out, I did much more of the Lockopedia. But I realised that, you have to have some kind of base. You have to have something to work off. And actually, in the end, I was writing material which I really wanted to do, which I really enjoyed doing. And the random bit was fun, and it was a nice place to go to. The stand-up was overtook. I mean, to the point now I don't really need to do it anymore. I've got a 2-hour stand-up show, which I do, which works great. But I still do it because I thought, well, I said I'll do it. Some nights I do it, some nights I don't do it very much because the stand-up works very well.
So you've got the DVDs out, you've got a few more dates of that tour left.
Yeah.
Do you know what's next? Have you got anything else on the horizon?
No, nothing, no. That's
okay.
the thing about this business, you don't know. But you never know.
So the DVD's out now.
Lockopedia.
Sean Locke, thank you so much.
Pleasure, thank you.
XFM. This is XFM. XFM.